Okay, so I am going to, it's 10:01 now, so I'm going to go ahead and kick off this webinar. So without further ado, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for another riveting session of Astreya Talks AV. My name is Lauren Frazier. I'm the Vice President of Marketing here at Astreya. And in today's Astreya Talks session, we are joined by two of our global partners in AV delivery, Utelogy and GUDE, as we discuss AV and automation 2025 and how AV is moving from unmanaged and reactive to proactive and fully IT integrated. Today, we will be taking questions and answers, and towards the end of our session. So if you do have questions for the panelists, please feel free to drop them in the comments so we can address them at the end. And without further ado, I want to go ahead and take this time to introduce the panelists that are joining us today. So I've got Jonathan Mangnall, Managing Director of Utelogy in the EMEA division. We have Philipp Gude, Chief Sales Officer of Gude Systems. Matt Cregan, our Director of AV Services at Astreya, and Bharath K,
Right.
our Vice President of Digital Workplace Services at Astreya. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and we are going to go ahead and get into it full speed ahead. So the first topic of today's conversation is we're really going to talk about the problems in today's AV landscape. I want to start the panel off by really discussing AV and workplace collaboration, and what it looks like in today's market in 2025 versus maybe what it looked like 10 years ago. So when I think of workplace collaboration, especially in the post-COVID era that we live in today, I think of shared and hybrid workplaces. I think of conference rooms, meeting rooms, auditoriums, events, things along those lines. So, and again, remember, I come from a marketing lens, so that's what I see in my periphery. So, passing this first question off to you, Matt. Can you define workplace collaboration and the shift in how we support spaces that I mentioned above, and maybe some that I haven't touched on?
Yeah, Lauren, thanks. I guess for me, when we talk about workplace collaboration, really it's one thing and it's a racing distance, right? It's erasing that distance between employees that be here in Dublin or California or anywhere in the world. And we do that with an ecosystem of tools that allows these teams to innovate together regardless of where they are. It relies on seamless technology and that technology working. And whenever it fails, that collaboration completely breaks down. Typically, the break fix model would wait for the user to report a screen is broken, a camera is broken, there's poor audio in a room. With the shift to proactive support, we identify and resolve the issues before the user even enters the room, right? It's a service that's really focused on guaranteeing uptime and a flawless user experience. And it's done in a number of ways. It's through 24/7 remote monitoring, being able to push firmware and software updates remotely, and then using that data to predict and prevent problems before they even impact a meeting. And that kind of leads me into bringing Jonathan into the conversation here. So, Jonathan, if you want to give your input on this.
Yeah, thanks. And I think one of the key things, and it's a really easy place for us to begin, is that most global AV estates are unmanaged. That means organizations have zero visibility. And the possibility of delivering a constant quality of service is nearly impossible when you can't see the technology that's out there. That's kind of one of the biggest problems. So it's, that's where we start thinking about what are the issues that we're solving. The consequence of all of this stuff not being managed is that the user experience suffers, and that's the critical part. And Astreya is an IT service provider, and people are used to having great service from IT, but not necessarily so from AV. And one of the key issues is that AV service is reactive rather than proactive. And this webinar is titled AV 3.0, and one of the core principles of designing for service management for success is ensuring that you've got the right network architecture, the products that are selected allow for manageability, and this is going to give organizations greater control, more visibility, reduce costs, and ultimately what we're aiming for is that better user experience. That's what this service management piece is all about, is about delivering great experiences to the user. The other issue is that right now the cost of managing AV is massive, and it isn't scalable, because you need, if you have more AV and UC systems, you need more humans. And the outcome of that is probably quite average, again, going because it's reactive rather than proactive. And what we're pushing for is this proactive level of service that enhances the user experience, removes huge amount of cost. And that's a critical part of this as well. And that's taking costs out of the operational side of the business, and allowing those people that are running around fixing stuff to do things that are more important. And I think, Philip, you've probably got some angles on this as well. We work closely together, so it'd be great to see what you're thinking.
Yeah, I'm aligned with you, Jonathan. So if you look at the global customers, they have offices across different locations and across the world. And if you like to fix a problem, they have to go to that room and they have to travel to that room. So at the end, they have long travel routes. So with us as a smart power management manufacturer, those issues can be addressed much faster and remotely. So the requirements to solve that problem from these global customers are as fast as possible. So some SLAs are like next day, or some SLAs are even 6 hours in 6 hours. So how can you fix a problem in 6 hours when the conference room is not working properly without like a remote service or remote proactive approach? That's impossible, right? So with Utelogy and us, you can easier and much faster solve these problems and troubleshoot. An example, I think everyone experienced that at home, is if your internet goes down at home, what are you doing? You go to the router, you unplug it, plug it back in, and then the problem is fixed. That's what we do in a smart way, and that's across like a high scale. So if you have like 1,000 rooms or plus, you can do that then on a global scale and just click a button, and then it solves these issues in the conference rooms. So at the end, less people have to travel, and you have less people that are solving the problem also on site. Yeah. Bharath, you are the Vice President of Digital Workspace Services at Astreya. So what's your opinion about that?
Yeah, thanks, Philip. So to build on Jonathan's point, right, and also the first topic which Lauren has taken, the evolving AV landscape from reactive to proactive. At Astreya, the top 3 challenges which we have seen wherever there is a reactive approach is number 1, productivity loss. In a reactive world, every technical failure causes a ripple effect and loss of productivity. Just imagine you're about to start a meeting with 10 executives. Suddenly, the meeting is not working. It might look like we have just lost 10 minutes in starting the meeting, but if you look at the compounded amount of time, we are going to lose more than an hour in that. So apart from that loss of initial time, what this does also is the meetings would lose momentum, the focus is broken. So every failure or a last minute issue leads to a productivity loss. That's point number 1 of being reactive. Number 2 is the emergency cost or repair cost, basically. So anything which requires constant fix drives up the cost, and anything related to urgency comes with a premium. So whenever you're reactive, that model is making you pay more for emergency callouts, last minute technical or technician dispatch, or expedited shipping of the parts. That is number 2. Lastly, third is the budget, which is going to be unpredictable. So whenever you're always reacting, technology budget becomes very volatile and it's going to be very, very hard to plan. So these are 3 major issues we have faced, or challenges we have faced while with the reactive approach. So I'll hand it over back to you, Lauren.
Thanks, Bharath. And I do want to touch on Philip's point about unplugging and plugging in. And again, I think that's the universal answer to everything, whether your cell phone isn't working or it's running slow, or your computer is running slow, or Chrome, for instance. I have issues with Chrome not loading sometimes. The answer is always, did you turn it off? Did you turn it on? Did you take the battery out? Did you put the battery back in? Did you, my internet isn't working. Did you unplug it? Did you plug it back in? So I love that real world reference that you supplied there, because that's the quick fix answer to most tech problems that I personally face. So um, going going back to Jonathan, what you said, the reactive to proactive, I want to touch on this a little bit. So from a marketing lens perspective, I can tell you I see a lot of leads that come in, and several of the requests that come in specifically for workplace collaboration are triage type leads. They need someone to come and fix something. They need someone to come and enhance an outdated system. We have an upcoming conference and need someone immediately. Those are just a few examples that I've seen that have come in front of me over the course of the last year. So I'm not sure if this is the same kind of reactive to proactive approach that you are specifically speaking to, but I can tell you that I do see that from my side of the house. So that said, I want to dive a little bit deeper into reactive to proactive and how Astreya, Utelogy, and GUDE are working together to empower and enhance organizations and migrate the reactive to proactive approach with the modernization of AV with AI and automation. So Jonathan, I'm going to pitch this back to you since you initially brought it up, and then we can open it up to the rest of the panelists.
Sure. And I'm going to start with why. Why has this become a problem now? You know, people have been doing video and collaboration for a while, but I think what we're seeing now is that, you know, with hybrid working since, you know, post-COVID, people are coming back to the office, and where they'd sit in a meeting room with a bunch of colleagues and throw something up on the screen, and that would be their meeting. Now there's pretty much an external participant or multiple external participants every time. So that meeting that was really quick to do previously with external participants, maybe not so because of some of the technical issues. And you know, we also talk about meeting equity, making sure that everybody in that meeting is having a similar experience. And I think, you know, with the ubiquity of video and collaboration, there's a higher level of expectation from the users that it just works. And I'll refer back to the fact that Astreya is an IT service management company. You know, people's expectation with their IT is that it's on all of the time because they use it every day, all day, every day. I think with AV and UC now, that's used all day, every day. So there is a higher expectation. So we've got to move away from that reactive, we call it hero-based support. The first time that people know they need support is when they're about to have that really important meeting. They're under pressure, they go to present, the screen's not on, what's happening? You know, we send someone really quickly to run and fix it. That one isn't scalable, but it also means that the user has had a bad experience. The only people that are high-fiving each other as the service agents that's met their SLA, but that's not good enough. So, you know, I think we've got to deliver something that creates the positive outcome for the users. And the only way to do that is with proactive management. And to do that, you need a software tool set. That's where we come in at Utelogy, something that will give you visibility, it gives you remote management, it gives you remote monitoring, and it gives you data. And I think, you know, one thing that's great in the market now is that we're seeing that because of the pressure that's put on by people coming back to the office, the proliferation of video and collaboration meetings, that people recognize they've got to reimagine their service contracts. So we're seeing tenders and RFIs coming out from major organizations that are asking for a UC, an AV service management tool set to augment the boots on the ground that they had fixing stuff. So this is a really important fact now that people recognize there is a need for turning these contracts from reactive to proactive. And again, this will significantly reduce the need for on-site staff and deliver this better user experience. And I guess, Matt, you know, we're working closely with you guys on this, and you've got loads of experience out in the field, so it'd be great to get your take.
Yeah, I think when you, you know, I think the recurring theme here today is going to be that user experience, right? And when we looked at that here in Astreya, one of the things we wanted to do was create that optimum user experience across everything we do in AV. And we're doing that with this combination of partnerships with yourselves, with Utelogy, with Good, and we're using that. I guess if you think of it, this with ourselves on the support side of things, and then Utelogy and Good, really, I see it as you guys are the central nervous system feeding back that real-time data, the alerting, giving that single pane of glass view over the global real estate. And when you detect something unresponsive, either through AI, self-healing happens and the user isn't impacted at all, or maybe one of our service desk agents has to do something remotely to a device, right? But we're able to instantly power cycle problematic equipment, and that really fixes before it impacts that user. I was actually just thinking when we were talking, I heard you talking there. It really shows how things have come on. And when we were at Infocom, at your booth, the news came out that the platform had won best in show for your agentic AI, right? And I know that's being built into everything that you guys do. So really, that for Astreya, that powerful combination of this partnership is at the heart of all of our AV services. Philip, I don't know if you want to chime in there.
Yeah, sure. Yes, Matt. So what you said with the power cycling and the self-healing, yeah. I think our product is the best service technician you can get. Does not sweat, does not sleep, works 24/7 without any salary, and solves problems in seconds. So yeah, I agree with you. But let's talk about monitoring and AI. So monitoring especially, I think, is important for AI because without data, and no AI, right? So without data, AI is not working properly. So at the end, in the beginning, you need the data so that also you can use the power of AI. So, and then you can ask the AI in the combination, which room is most used, which room is occupied, which room has the highest power consumption, and so on. And then the agent will tell you what you need and what information you need. So, yeah. Back to you, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you, Philip. I do actually want to touch on that. I think, as we evolve, right, we see AI and automation really being at the front of all technology. So I appreciate that between the three organizations here that we have a partnership that is staying afront of these trends. So dialing it back, actually, I want to talk a little bit more about remote monitoring, analytics, and control. Jonathan, you mentioned earlier about having, you didn't quite say dispersed systems, but I interpreted it as working across dispersed systems across the globe. So everyone here is a global partner. We support organizations around the world. At Astreya, we're in 40 different countries across the globe. Philip, you are based in Germany. Jonathan, you're based in London. Bharath, you're in India, and I'm here in Tennessee. So diving in a little bit more on the remote monitoring and analytics part of that, Philip, thank you for segueing into my question, is how are Astreya, GUDE, and Utelogy managing the workplace collaboration systems for these organizations, the AV systems, and providing that critical data to ensure that organizations are getting their appropriate ROI? And just sticking with the trend, I'll send it to Jonathan first, and then allow for Matt and Philip and Bharath to weigh in on it.
Cool. Yeah, and I think the starting point for management and monitoring is about visibility. People first think about the break fix cycle, a bit like a car. The first thing you want to know is if you've got a major problem, the red light flashes to tell you that something wrong. Is it on? Is it off? Is it dead? Is it alive? And that's really the point of entry for us. But the evolution comes when people realize that once they have data, there's so much more that they can do. Our customers start making better and more informed decisions across a wide range of areas. And beyond the initial excitement of turning on the service and turning that from reactive to proactive, they realize that there's lots of data that tracks all sorts of different things: utilization of equipment, understanding occupancy of rooms, correlating that occupancy with room bookings. and even measuring things. A lot of the technology now actually has inbuilt sensors like air quality and power utilization, with GUDE. So instead of just thinking, right, we want this data just to say, is it on, is it off, which is a good starting point, right? That's the basis of your car. Have we got enough fuel to get from A to B? But once you realize that, you can get other data, it changes your habits. It allows customers to make business decisions about what their next generation of meeting spaces will look like. And that's based on real-time facts, not just because a manufacturer said you need a brighter, shinier display, or you need to go from 4K to 8K. It's all about real data saying, people are using this technology, they're not using that technology. Let's build appropriately. And that data becomes really powerful. And I think, one of the things that we always talk about is facilities people getting data and understanding that the rooms they built, those 10-person meeting rooms that are showing as 98% booked, are actually only 30% occupied, because we use the people counting sensors to say that there's less people in the room than the room holds. So, the next generation of rooms, instead of taking another floor in the building, we can actually make the rooms smaller, double the number of meeting rooms, and get better utilization out of them. So all of that data becomes really important to a whole different host of stakeholders. So driving more value. And again, once you've got the data, you can then apply it to AI and do all of the other things that people want to do. Again, importantly, we've got to talk to our customers to understand what it is they need. And Philip, you obviously made some good points about that. We work closely, so it'd be great to get your take.
Yeah, I think everyone agrees here if I say data is the oil of the 21st century. So when it comes to data, and yeah, as you know, we provide all the power data. And with this power data of the buildings, of the AV and IT installation, you can use it to prevent problems in the future, and also to reduce the carbon footprint and the electricity cost. So it's substantial for facility managers, and especially also service fleets and also sustainability managers to have this information. So, for example, if you did not monitor the power consumption before, you don't know how much you saved. So that means that, yeah, you have to measure it first to know if you saved money or if you saved electricity cost. It is kind of similar to a company, right? If you do not measure sales and expenses, you do not know where the company is going, and you do not know if the company makes any profit or not. Yeah. So yeah, at the end, proactive monitoring prevents issues, reduce downtime, and lowers fleet cost for our customers. Yeah. But let's also talk about my key topic, remote management and control. I talked about that earlier with the power cycling, but with remote control, you can really speed up the AV service. And at the end client, I think that's a requirement so that they really can have shorter SLAs, and that the managed service provider can meet these SLAs faster. So yeah, proactive fix means at the end for no wasted meetings, because also often if there's a problem in the room, the users do not know it, so they walk into the room and then they see, oh, it's not working properly, so they have to find another room, and that's also cost at the end. So let's say, pretend every 5 or 10 minutes of a meeting you cannot use, right? So then it's also high cost for these global customers. Yeah. Bharath, what do you say about that?
Yeah, Philip, I do agree. So right now, if you look at it, the role of remote monitoring has fundamentally changed. It's no longer a tool for just a maintenance, but we should look at that as a more of a proactive strategic asset benefiting multiple departments within an organization. It's also about leveraging the data from the remote monitoring and using those signals to kind of enable a fix even before it is going to do an impact. So which we call that as fix before impact, right? So that is one. Secondly, also by translating the raw infrastructure data which we get from the monitoring, we can obviously create actionable insights, and those insights can be passed on to the internal departments. Like it can go to the IT team, it can go to the facilities, or it can go to even the finance leaders. So what we are effectively doing with this monitoring, remote monitoring, is that we are moving away from solving problems, but kind of preventing them entirely. So what happens is that this approach fosters more of a resilient and efficient organization, creating a distinctive advantage for them. So what I see in today's world is that customers are not looking at, the question is, should we implement it? They're moving away from should we implement it to how fast can they implement and align themselves. So that's how I see the remote monitoring evolving now in the market. I'll pass it on back to you, Lauren.
Thank you. So I also want to call out to, Philip, you talked about the data and the remote monitoring, which actually really touches on one of the top key points that Bharath mentioned at the very beginning of the session, was that the productivity loss is that you walk into a room, you don't know that something's not working, and then you end up with that productivity loss, which is kind of a trickle down effect, which you think it's only going to be 10 minutes, but it ends up being an hour loss of time just because of having to find a new location or having to reset or unplug the equipment or whatever the issue at hand might be. So I appreciate that we're able to kind of come full circle with some of these conversations. So going into a different segue, I want to talk about designing for success and standards and interoperability. So we've talked about, just on as we've been evolving this webinar and having these conversations, we've talked about designing for success. So I'd like to dive in and peel back the layers on what does success look like from establishing workplace collaboration service for a customer. What are the standards and the interoperability that organizations really need to look for when they're either looking to enhance an existing infrastructure or design something new? This is open to everyone. Matt, I know you do a lot from going in and really establishing a stronghold for that workplace collaboration service that we offer at Astreya. But I also want to know, just from everyone on this panel, what does success look like in the world of AV? And Jonathan, why start something new? Let's start with you again, and then we'll go to Matt and Philip and Bharath as well.
Yeah, and this is a really hot topic for me, something that I get a little bit excited about. And part of the reason is, historically, AV systems are designed around a performance spec based on the job that the equipment does. Systems get value engineered to meet budgets at the end of a project because they've overspent on Italian marble in the lobby, and the equipment gets downgraded. And this is all to meet capital budgets, but there's little or no thought about management or how that system's going to be managed through its life cycle for the next 3 or 5 years. And that's a real major problem. But designing for service success means selecting the right hardware that can be managed and monitored. And that means it needs to have a rich API. It clearly needs to be sat on the network, but people need to start at the first principles when they're designing systems. They need to understand, what equipment's out there, is it able to be managed, and how are you going to manage it? So creating the right network infrastructure is key. Deciding which of your pieces of technology are going to go on the network, hopefully all of them, and making sure your security protocols are met and what have you. But you've got to really start with the basic principles. And most of our customers now are craving interoperability and standards. It's like a light bulb fitting into a regular socket. AV typically lacks that, but being vendor agnostic and scalable is really what people are looking for, and that we see as the path forward. And I think if we look at the main calling platforms now, we've got Teams, we've got Zoom, we've got WebEx, and to a degree Meet. But what we're seeing now is that a number of these hardware manufacturers are becoming more agnostic. They recognize they've got to build a platform that will serve any of these systems, but there's still not standards in the back end. So where we come in is that we can glue all of these things together, because each one of the manufacturers has a different methodology for management. It may have a native API, it may have a cloud API, it might have a mixture of both. But the really key thing is that we're now starting to work with these manufacturers to identify what what their API looks like, what our customers need. And I think, a really good example is that, we've got to work in symbiosis with the end user to see what they want with the manufacturers. And we do that with Philipp, with GUDE, we feedback all of the time. So in real time, this is all evolving. So designing success starts with understanding what the customer needs. We've got to start with why, take that back to the manufacturers and get it built in at source, but also change the mindset of the end users in terms of how they buy their technology. If you're just thinking about capital cost at a moment in time, that's not going to serve you well for the next 3 to 5 years from a service management point of view. So there's a few changes that needed to be made. The market is changing, but as soon as people realize that they can drive this cost out of the business, they can deliver better mean time to resolution, they can address some of their sustainability goals, it will start to happen. But like everything, you've got to build strong foundations. You've got to work on these first principles of designing correctly. So Matt, I think we've talked about this a lot in the past, but it'd be great just to get your thoughts as well.
Yeah, Jonathan, I couldn't agree more, right? We've talked around this a lot recently, but when you talk about success in today's AV landscape, right, it has to be linked to system resilience and measured really by, you mentioned MTTR, the speed of troubleshooting and how quickly we can remediate something and not impact that user. As you said, to do that, these AV systems, the entire ecosystem has to be designed with that remote management piece at its absolute core, right? We need to move away from the model of reactive, as we said earlier on at the start of this webinar, and make that pivot to proactive. And if we do that and are successful in designing these systems in a way that we can fully manage that dispersed real estate, it enables our support teams, whether it's here in Dublin or in Hyderabad or California, wherever it might be, they can manage this large fleet of rooms absolutely proactively, monitoring the device health, running diagnostics, testing rooms during the night. And then if and when a failure does occur, it's the ability to instantly do something, whether it's through AI and self-healing or remotely rebooting something or power cycling an entire rack of equipment utilizing PDUs, right? So this transforms that downtime that maybe was hours or days if we had to dispatch a technician to the field to either minutes or seconds. It cuts down operational cost, and it ensures that either the user isn't impacted at all because we fixed it before it's impacted them, or that impact is absolutely minimal. And Philipp, I'd love to hear from you then on how you feel the success is.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Jonathan and Matt. So, but I look at kind of like from the customer side. So what want the customer, right? And they want at the end faster troubleshooting and faster and better AV managed service. So at the end, I think that customer experience is the success. But to have that success for the customer, the customer has to have some standards, and he needs to start with a network and with a smart PDU, because that's the fundamental. So if he does not have that fundamental, then you cannot provide that extra service and that extra service for customer success. And so that is for me at the end this success for the customer. Yeah. Bharath, what do you say about that, and what means success for you?
Yeah, thanks, Philipp. So adding to your point and the points which Matt also detailed, I think the true success in modern AV, the strategy moves beyond just the technical specifications, right? But it is purely to focus on the user adoption, basically the ease of use and the global consistency. So I would like you to think like this. Suppose on a Tuesday morning, busy morning, an employee walks here in India, must be able to walk into any of the meeting space, launch a session with a single intuitive touch, and then kind of expect the same experience all across the company. So either from New York or from Singapore or from India. So it is this universal consistency and standard, and also the simplicity which can help the businesses to eliminate any technology-related anxiety. So that is something which is going to be very successful for any AV setup, and also creating the trust, right? The confident expectation that the tools will just work every time. So that drives adoption. That is going to be the greatest success for you. So back to you, Lauren. Lauren, you're on mute.
I was muted. Oh, I can't believe that just happened in 2025. I apologize to everyone in the audience. Thank you, Bharath, so much. So I was going to comment on what Philipp said about success being customer success. I really appreciate that. I think all of us are in a customer service organization where the voice of the customer is really important to us and the success of our organization. So I appreciate you adding lens to customer success is really what success looks like for all of our organizations. So we have about 10 minutes left on this live session. So I want to take a moment and talk about real world examples. I know that from a partnership standpoint, we've all worked together in various capacities. And so I think that we have shared experiences and shared real world examples that we can share with our audience to talk about pain points and fixes. So I'm going to pass this off to the panel. Jonathan, why don't you start, and we'll talk about some real world case studies that we have experienced and that we can share with our audience joining us today.
Yeah. And I think from our point of view, we've been doing this a little while now, but the market has come to us. We've sort of realized, or the market has realized, that they need a tool set to deliver, this level of service. And the example I'm going to use, it's actually it's a major retailer, one of the biggest in the world that we work with, and they've got multiple thousands of rooms across their estate. And by providing visibility to them initially, we've reduced their mean time to resolution by 75%, which, I mean, it sounds like a big number, and it is a big number, but when you go from nothing to something, you're always going to get a step change like that. And it is really significant. We see that across quite a lot of our other customers. Some of them are reducing their cost of operation by using automated room checks, and they're taking out multiple people from that's kind of mundane part of their service operation and moving them to other more important parts of the business where they can use their skills better. But that's driving huge costs out of the business. The other element we've got, again, this is going back to that retailer, is that they're using some of our self-healing capabilities, and this is really interesting. One of the problems they were experiencing was displays switching to the wrong input, something that's really common. You go into a meeting room, nothing's working, it would seem, but all it is the screen's on the wrong input. It's on HDMI 2 instead of HDMI 1. You raise a service ticket, someone runs and tries to fix it, drama, but that costs money. And in this instance, every time a ticket was raised, they were incurring costs because of the way their service contract was executed. What we've done there is that we've built in some self-healing capabilities so that we're actually changing that back to the right display input seconds after it's gone wrong. So where there's no apparent change or no problem shown to the user, there's no ticket raised and no cost incurred. But really importantly, we are still measuring the fact that that incident happened and it gets logged as a fault within the system, although a ticket doesn't get raised. So our customer was able to very clearly quantify that just by doing that simple exercise, it drove 65% of the cost out of their service operation, which was massive. And we're talking millions of dollars. So simple things like that are really, really important. So I think that's a very simple real world example. Conscious was short on time. So Philipp, I know that we worked on a number of great case studies with you as well. So I know you've got something interesting to tell us on this subject.
Yes, true. So as you know, we have several case studies in university or with universities, conference rooms, and also in digital signage, and also conference rooms across the world. I just want to highlight one case study, and also because the time is short, I will focus just on the numbers. So high return on investment here. So one of the case studies was the London Business School, so one of the biggest universities in the UK, and they saved in 1 year over 151,000 kilowatt hours of energy, and which translated into 51,000 pounds in annual cost saving, so just on the electricity side. That was not even with a service, and that is equal to over 48 tons of CO2. So you really see that there's a big return on investment, and you can save really electricity costs if you do these proactive monitoring approach. And so back to you, Matt. I just short and sharp.
There you go. Thanks. Yeah, I think one of the things I want to talk and give an example of is Bharath mentioned it earlier, and I think it's been a recurring theme throughout, right? It's that standard user experience. And one of the things we found, and as Astreya has taken over different AV contracts, we noticed that in different countries, there's different design standards, and really some systems haven't been designed with that user in mind. And whenever we took over one particular contract, and Astreya initiated a pretty comprehensive overhaul of the entire AV real estate. And at the core of that was an implementation of design standards for all their event spaces. And that was coupled with designing new standardized UIs for all touch panels that was rolled out globally. And the difference was unbelievable, right? It was the same rooms now deployed globally, following a standard, following a simple UI design that meant consistency across all offices at our clients, and user satisfaction on these spaces went through the roof, right? And it's just by taking that and holistically looking and saying what do the users need, how are they going to interact with these spaces, and designing it in a way that then makes it easy for them to do so. All the guesswork was removed then, and it translated into, I guess, muscle memory that enabled these rooms to be used in a very simple way for the client. So I just wanted to kind of pull it back to that it's essential that any spaces are designed with the end user in mind, and that's from use in the room and also how those rooms are going to be supported. Lauren.
Thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate that example. And we have 3 very unique case study examples there from saving cost saving, both with Jonathan and Philip. And I did do quick math for everyone in the audience. Philip said it was 51,000 pounds. I think I am in the US, so I had to do a quick conversion. That was about 69,000 US dollars. So quick math there on just annual savings, which is fantastic. And then, to your point, Matt, end user experience is crucial. So we look at sustainability, we look at cost savings, we look at ROI, and we look at usefulness. So I appreciate all of those examples, especially for our audience. So before we dive into the Q&A, and I know we're hitting really close to the end of this session, I did want to pass the last bit to Bharath and ask if you had anything else that you wanted to add to the future plans of, where you see AV, where the AV landscape. You are, the Vice President of Digital Workplace Services, so I feel like you have got some insight there. And then we do have several questions. I think we've got 7 questions from the audience. We'll answer a few of those, and what we aren't able to answer today, we'll answer via email following this session. So Bharath, before we dive into the Q&A, do you have anything else that you would like to add?
Yeah, sure. So I would like to probably talk about the partnership from Utelogy and GUDE. So we'll have to think out something like Astreya, we provide the 24/7 expert managed services, and also we provide the human oversight. Then Utelogy comes into play, where Utelogy delivers the intelligent software platform or the global monitoring, and also they provide data-driven insights as well. And finally, GUDE provides the essential hardware as well as the power control and remediation. So what happens is when all these 3 combine, you're not just going to get a simple one solution, you're going to get an integrated solution, which is going to be very decisive against any downtime across the organization, and also it should be ensuring that there is a seamless user experience every time. So I think that is something which I would sum up as the value of this partnership between Utelogy and GUDE. Back to you,
Thank
Laura.
you. Thank you so much, Bharath. So as I mentioned, I want to be conscious of time. So we're only going to answer a couple of these questions that came from the audience before we wrap up today's live session. So I'm going to start. I'm just going to pick a couple. I think that they're pretty diverse. So first question, it says, considering the hybrid work nature post-COVID in most of the enterprises, how do we foresee the role / impact of AI and AV / collaboration services end users? So I think that this is maybe a little bit of Jonathan, maybe a little bit of Matt, and maybe a little bit of Philip. I'm not sure. So I'll open it up to the panel. Again, question is, considering the hybrid work nature post-COVID in most of the enterprises, how do we foresee the role / impact of AI and AV / workplace collaboration services end users?
Matt, do you want to take that
Yeah,
initially?
yeah.
I'm still thinking. So
Yeah, I'm thinking. Yeah, I'm.
Should I repeat it?
Yeah,
no,
repeat
I
it.
mean,
Sorry.
I guess from our point of view, we're looking at AI from a service management point of view. So, you know, and we're looking at agentic AI and you know what that can do for the users, how it can improve service levels, how it can you know, deliver more to the customer. You know, and I think we talked about this earlier, that we have the data. The bit that we're working on at the moment is what we're going to do with that data and what it is that users want. You know, and I think, you know, improving the break fix cycle is something that everybody wants to be able to do. And how do we use AI to do that? Again, you know, Matt, you know, from a service point of view, what are you saying? What are you hearing people saying?
Yeah, I think for me, for the end user side of things, right? That part of the question, I guess, really what we're seeing AI in the meeting rooms is enabling things like, I guess, hands-free control, right? Voice commands, gesture recognition, maybe, and
Summary of the
even
meeting. Yeah.
And enabling users to interact with the spaces in a way that maybe they wouldn't have been able to historically, right? So from that end user point of view, I think it's a very positive experience. Even things like the note generation and stuff like that that's been implemented into these spaces.
All right. Anyone else want to add to that before I move on to the next question? Nope. All right. Next question. So thank you, Jonathan and Matt, for that. Next question. This says BYOD video collaboration devices, video bars that do not have compute are often left behind when capturing utilization. How does Utelogy capture BYOD usage in comparison to Microsoft Pro Portal?
That's a very topical question at the moment, and we currently can get data, the same data that Pro Portal delivers, and you know, bearing in mind that some of that is retrospective, as has been well reported, that is getting stopped in sometime in November. But we're working closely with Microsoft to you know, get that data and deliver it directly into our platform. I think the other thing with BYOD devices, and you know, and we know that the kind of main protagonists out there, there's Poly, there's Logi, there's Neat, those that don't have compute on, but all of those devices do have APIs. You know, whether it's, you know, in Logi's case, whether it's talking to Sync or Sync Cloud or Collab OS, Neat is Pulse, etc., etc. And you know, Cisco is control hub. And we can get lots of information from that. Some of it is call data, and we can certainly see in-call data, or that somebody's in a call. But comparing it to Microsoft, sorry, the the Pro Portal is a challenge because it's going away. But we are working, as I say, to get more of that data directly into our platform. And Microsoft are aware that by eliminating that access to the Graph API, which is, I think it's happening in middle of November, it's causing a number of customers, some consternation. And those customers, and this is end user customers, have spoken directly to Microsoft about that, because they see the need to deliver this into the single pane of glass. And they've created effectively their MSP view of Pro Portal, which is fine if that's all you want to manage. But the majority of our customers want to manage a large global estate with a plethora of different devices. Sure, Teams is the calling platform, and some of that data is important. The other question is, how do we get real-time data? Because information that goes to Graph and then comes back through Pro Portal isn't necessarily real-time. So if you need real-time call stats, that's not something that's going to help. But we'd love to go into, I don't know who the question was from, but we can go into quite a lot of detail about that. And some of it is we're working on in real time to fix something that we only found out about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it's a very hot topic, and as I say, really I'd love to get some of our technical people to go into more detail on that.
Well, I will say we'll take these questions and answers, and we'll provide more detailed. We might be able to use this to create a thought leadership piece, Jonathan. So we did have one more question. Well, we have several questions, but there was one that came in that I thought might be good to have the four of y'all answer. So we've got the last question. It says, how do you resolve monitoring and remoting to AV rooms that are standalone, which are not connected to the network, to the access, sorry, let's see here, that are standalone, which are not connected to the network, to the access, or to access the internet, and where every rooms are networked similar with the same IP scheme and topography, or topology, excuse me. Is it a redesign to meet your connections?
I guess the primary thing is that the equipment needs to be on the network. The network needs to be robust, and we have a data collector which sits on the customer's network, and getting into quite specifics now, but we have to have network connectivity between our data collector and the devices. If those devices aren't on the network, then we can't monitor them. That's a prerequisite. The simple prerequisites for us: the device needs to have an API, and it needs to be on the network, and then we can do anything. What we can do is also dependent on the quality of the API and the richness of it. But again, something we'd need to kind of, again, happy to have a deep dive onto that and look at the specifics of, it sounds like this particular customer has a real life application where they have spaces that aren't on the network. So, we can address that. But I think the basis is that it does need to be on the network.
Yeah.
Okay.
For us, for the hardware, it needs to be local, but can be on the internet. So it does not have to be on the internet. So on the local network is also fine. But in combination with Utelogy, Jonathan is totally right. But we could work also without the internet. But in combination with a proactive approach, you need internet, you need internet for sure. Yes.
I would imagine you need it, at least from a remote monitoring standpoint too. You have to be able to actually access the systems. So, all right, I've got one more question I'm going to throw out, and then we're going to just wrap this up. So, how do you see AI accelerating refresh cycles in AV hardware?
Yeah, I guess I chime in here, right? Historically, maybe we would have seen AV hardware installed in conference rooms or event spaces, and it might have sat there and been used for 7-10 years and before it was even considered to be refreshed, right? But as AI is getting embedded in everything that we do and in all of the AV hardware that we use, customers are having to increase the speed that they're refreshing these spaces, because if they want to use these AI-enabled features and AI-enabled devices, they need the hardware that's compatible and the hardware that's able to do it, right? They have to upgrade this hardware more frequently to be able to access the same features that I guess a lot of their competitors have, and they want to maintain that competitive edge. So historically, where maybe we talked about earlier, and Jonathan mentioned it, systems maybe were in a room and you went in and plugged a HDMI cable in and you just presented in that room. Now there's this shift, all these AI enabled features, and everybody wants them. So it's really driving people to refresh their hardware much sooner.
And I think, I mean, sort of going back to the earlier question about AI as well, and this isn't necessarily about the refresh cycle, but just thinking about it and maybe, addressing, some of the things that we're looking at is maybe being able to orchestrate schedule actions for large scale operations, and the things that, from an operational point of view would make sense, that, update, your whatever it is, your Poly Studio X30 to the latest firmware on a weekend, and then send emails out to report that everything's completed. These are the sort of simple tasks that AI can really help with. And this is the bit that we're looking at is, it's got to be good, it's got to be practical, it's got to be beneficial. But these are some of the things that we're talking to people about. And when we, I think someone mentioned, we won best in show at Infocom for this, and this is the stuff that I think is resonating with people. I think there's a lot of hype around AI and people doing fancy trick things, but we've got to be really pragmatic and say, what are the things that people waste time on? The jobs that people are doing that are a little bit mindless, the jobs that nobody wants to do. How do we automate those using AI? And this isn't about getting rid of people. This is about getting the people to do stuff that they're much better equipped to do, and AI to do these simple things. And this is the stuff that we're looking at and again, it's about, scale, it's about driving cost out of the business, and, giving the people their lives back. No one wants to do these mundane tasks. And that's the bit for us that's important, that it's not about being fancy and trick. It's about looking systematically through the tasks of service management and which bits can be done through AI. So these are the things that are really, really key. Automating workflows. We're talking about integrating into IT service management systems, but the workflow is a really important thing for us to continually improve this. These are the sorts of things that AI can also help with as well.
Yeah, I think at the end, AI will increase productivity on both ends, right? User experience will be better, and also on the operation side. So at the end, productivity goes up, and I think that's key.
Guess, predictive analytics as well. Once we know where the problems are, and we're getting real data and actually crunching that data to say, this is what's happening. This is the course of events that happens before we get this problem. This is the sort of stuff that will improve all of these things. So that'll enhance reliability, it'll reduce cost, and improve operational efficiency. So this is some of the stuff we're working on in the background with some of our technology partners as well.
Well, thank you guys for taking the time to answer these questions. As I mentioned, we have several questions that came through. So if we didn't get to your question today, we will make sure to answer it as a follow-on to this session. Again, I want to thank everyone in the audience for joining us today. I want to thank our special guests, Jonathan and Philip, for joining Matt, Bharath, and I on our Astreya Talks AV session. We will make sure we do more of these. It seems like we had a pretty large audience and a lot of questions, so a very great topic to cover. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will be sending a follow-up email. You'll be able to see this in playback mode. We'll be able to answer all of the questions. And gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. And to everyone else, have a great rest of your week and a wonderful weekend.
Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.